everyone, and welcome to the light side
of the paranormal.
I'm Alice.
And I'm Jenna. And today we are going to be talking about near-death experiences. Dr. Raymond Moody is the one who coined this term near-death experience, and that was in 1975 in his book Life After Life. And so some people credit him with kind of bringing the idea of near-death experiences like to the public, but that is not true. Like these people have been telling stories like this for like years and years, and including some work that was written by Plato. I think he had like a story in one of his works of somebody a long time ago who had said that they died in battle and came back and saw God. So, yes.
So, if you've never really heard of this before, you may be wondering, what are near-death experiences exactly? So, I mean, obviously, a term like this could be interpreted in so many ways, but one definition would be, and I will read this, any experience in which someone close to death or suffering from some trauma or disease that might lead to death perceives events that seem to be impossible, unusual, or supernatural.
So, a general description of near-death experience is somebody who is in a situation where they are dying or have died and are revived, but in that little span, they've experienced something spiritual or something that they can't explain, where for the most part they feel like they are moving on to a life after death. Mm-hmm. This is where like the term go to the light and my whole life flashed before my eyes kind of came from.
Spooky sneeze.
So most near-death experiences follow the same kind of traits, but not all of them include all of these traits, and not in this order. But most have these in common, which we will list now.
Yeah, so people often experience an intense, bright, white light. It's not scary or painful. Most of the time people will think that it's representing like a higher power or possibly heaven or an equivalent to heaven, depending on their religion or beliefs.
So the next one is an out-of-body experience. So most, if not all, near-death experiences experience an out-of-body experience. Okay. But you can also have an out-of-body experience when you're not near death. So that could be astral projection or a feeling of leaving your body in a certain situation. But for this topic, when they are near death, they're leaving their body, or their soul is leaving their body. So another thing that they often say when they're leaving their body is that, so they're floating above their body and they can see their body. A big reason to believe that this is really happening is that in a lot of cases, when the person has returned to their body and they are alive again, they can recount seeing their body lying on the table, and some people have been able to tell the doctor and the nurses what they saw them doing to their body, or conversations that they had while this was going on, that this person was dead on the table. They were flatlining.
In the case of when it's happening like in a hospital situation?
Yeah, sorry. Or like if you're, hit by a car or something, people have said that they've seen like the emergency response people working on them.
Right.
And they're floating above that. But they can
Which would blow their minds.
Yeah. They can recount, like, there was like a few people that told the doctor and the nurses the exact conversation that they were having while they were working on them. I mean, how else would they know that? They were flatlined. It's not like they can hear while it's going on, right? Also, people have said that they start floating, that they've floated through hospital floors and have seen what was going on through the roof of the hospital. Lots of people say that they float all the way up into the sky and into space. So that's really interesting.
Boom. So many people consistently account that they feel as though they're entering another dimension, another plane, another world, so to speak. And depending on your religion, say in like Christian-based religions and things, they feel like they're going to either heaven or hell.
People also say that they encounter spirit beings, so beings of light, that they might interpret as loved ones or angels or God that they see in this trip up.
People also say that they actually go through the classic like tunnel with the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, later on we'll be discussing the scientific beliefs around near-death experiences, and they do touch on this light at the end of the tunnel situation, so I'm really excited to share that with you guys after. But yeah, it's just interesting to see consistent stories between thousands of people is just really interesting.
And also, some people don't experience the tunnel, they just have the light that they're going to the light, but also people who do experience the tunnel, they see their loved ones or hear spirit beings and stuff on their way to the light.
Well, and
sometimes they never actually make it to the light, because maybe that's like the final stage.
And then you're being pulled back into your body. Yeah. And like, what an oddly specific thing for so many people to
the tunnel thing.
Say, yeah.
So also a lot of people say that they communicate with some type of spirit voice, and actually most commonly, most people who say they hear something say they hear a strong male voice saying that it's not their time and it's time to go back. Some people also say that they're given the option to go back into their earthly body or to stay in this heavenly state and progress into life after death.
I find it really interesting that it's usually a male voice.
Yes. Also, I have to say that I found it really interesting that, like, as I'm writing this, I like little mini mind blows things, because I'm like, so the people who were given the option to stay or go have all chosen to go back into their earthly body.
To stay, right.
So, I mean, if you think about it, every single person who's passed, not everyone's given the option, obviously, because some earthly bodies are not able to be saved, but for other people who are given the option, who are no longer with us, they've all chosen to go to wherever it is that they're going, and we just don't know it because they didn't come back to tell us.
Right, like for the people who made the decision to not come back to their earthly bodies,
they've passed on, and we don't know, you know, like we don't know what they experienced.
That's the spookiest thing, in my opinion, about death in general, is just there's so much that we don't know, because oftentimes once people have passed on, they're unable to tell us.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested in like one day communicating with someone who's passed on, like a spirit or something, seeing if they would ever divulge any information about the afterlife. Very interesting. Many people have heard the expression, "I saw my life flash before my eyes." Now, this is because so many people have told stories of when experiencing something so close to death like this, they do get kind of a replay or a review of their life. Sometimes it's just quick and snippets, but sometimes it's actually really detailed. And other times there's actually a spirit with them on this review, kind of putting judgment on them, whether it's good or bad, I guess, which kind of reminds me of the Christmas Carol, with like, you know, the spirit of Christmas past.
Yeah, like if you don't change your ways kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if that Christmas story kind of came from someone who had a near-death experience like this.
So on the other side of that, like the more hellish kind of version of having a near-death experience, I just want to read a couple of things that people have reported seeing on the other end of that. So some people report being put, this is so interesting, I love this, being put in the shoes of the person that they've done wrong. So they had to, their life review was kind of like, now you're going to see it from the person that you were terrible to. They're going to see it from their point of view. So it says, I was being put into the other person's shoes as I was doing bad things to them. And also, I was told by a psychic once that a lot of people who stay haunting areas and stuff choose not to move forward because they refuse to go through their life review, because they know how horrendous it'll be, because they will have to live it through the other person's shoes or see it through the other person's eyes, and they don't want to do that because they know how bad it'll be, so they just choose to stick around.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, someone else said, I could see how insensitive I was to people and didn't even know it. It was excruciating and overwhelming to relive things that I had done that I had forgotten about or just didn't care about. I was made to feel the way I made others feel.
Right.
And somebody else said, after a long time, my eyes began to burn so badly that I finally decided that it was worth it to put up with the bad flashes just so that I could close my eyes for a little bit. And I began to sob quietly as the flashes of my evil ways rushed in, and I heard a voice that said,
I just got chills.
yeah, I heard a voice that said, if you ask him, maybe he will save you.
Wow.
So this is all the same account, I believe, of one person. He also said that I was an alcoholic drug dealer that had become a thug, but he turned his life around and he no longer fears death, even after his hellish experience, because of the way that he changed afterwards.
Wow. Some people, unfortunately, experience visions of the end of times, like the end of the world as we know it, and this includes children sometimes, which is really unfortunate. That would be really, really scary, I think.
All
for a
of
child.
these things, I think, include children. It is said that children have near-death experiences as well, which is really interesting because most of these children have never heard of them before, and yet they still experience a lot of the same things that adults do when they don't have any idea of religion or different religions or different theories on life after death.
I think that's why I find like children's experiences with anything to do with the paranormal are so much more validating, because
they have nothing else to go on.
exactly, it's not like, oh, I saw that in a movie, and,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah.
I feel like children could
It's very
be,
pure.
yes, they could be the ones that provide us with the truth, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Or on the other side, they have visions of humans evolving into higher beings, which is so, that must have been like so mind-blowing for people to see that. I would wonder what that actually looks like.
I also wonder who gets to see what. Why does that person see the world ending? Why does the next person see the world evolving? Is it the state of the world at that moment when they pass? Like, if the world were to end right now, or like, you know what I mean? Like, right now it looks real bad.
Yeah.
But then this person has a near-death experience, like, right now it's looking real good.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. Often people say they experience, like, when they're experiencing this light and their loved ones and stuff, that they experience an overwhelming sense of love that they never thought they could experience before. Like this overwhelming sense of love, no fear whatsoever, and also a feeling of not being sad that they're leaving loved ones behind. Not even worrying about their loved ones or what's gonna happen, or just focused on just like this pure love and just wanting it, just, you know, wanting it and not caring about anything else. No fear, no worries, nothing. So on the other side of all of these like wonderful things happening, there is between 1 and 25% of people who don't experience any of this at all, who experience the opposite end of this. So no love, no light, no God, no heaven. They experience pain and darkness, evil, and being plagued by demons or malicious imps, and also experience like the biblical view on hell. So lakes of fire, intense heat, tormented souls, and screaming, stuff like that. So they don't float up.
That would be absolutely terrifying, to feel yourself moving downwards.
Yes. My kind of interesting view on this is, I don't know if I believe in hell or heaven. I kind of believe in just this evolving to this higher self, or this higher consciousness. Not necessarily like heaven's a place where you're like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Not
Drinking
like that.
cocktails with God.
Yeah, no. So my thing is like, maybe these people who experience the hell aspect of this are almost being like given like a slap in the face, like change your ways, trying to scare them. Like maybe if they didn't get scared, they wouldn't change.
Right. Yeah.
Or if they see how awful this could be, maybe they will come back and change how they are so that they can make a difference, because they are capable of making a difference, but they choose not to. So they need that smack. Some people report that they're going down to hell and having a divine spirit grab them in a hug and pull them out and say, it's not your time.
Mm-hmm. And smarten up.
Yeah, yeah. Also, more than 100 subjects that were interviewed on this topic have said that their previous religious beliefs had absolutely no play on what happened to them during their near-death experience. So that's interesting as well. Also, on that note, it is also said that most people who come back from having an experience like this, who weren't religious before, or I shouldn't say religious, who weren't spiritual or who didn't have a belief in life after death, now have a belief in life after death, are more spiritual, more religious. But interestingly enough, attendance in church does not go up. So it's almost like people realize that they can find spirituality and religion within themselves and they don't need to go somewhere to find it. Most people find that they now have a purpose in life, that they no longer fear death. They are relaxed and have a positive view on death because they know how wonderful it will be when it comes. Except I guess for the people who experience the bad, and I guess probably most of them try and change things so that they can experience the good side of it when it happens again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be talking about the spiritual side right now. We're going to be strictly talking about the scientific side of it. So they have a term for the feeling of being pulled out of one's body, and it's called depersonalization. Now, they're going to dive into why people experience depersonalization. They say that the brain will fall into a state between dreaming and being awake, and that's what's happening.
Okay.
People with REM sleep abnormalities, they say, are more prone to having near-death experiences or depersonalization.
Really? Interesting.
I know. They say that this can also be triggered by a spike in electrical activity in a dying brain. They say that depersonalization can also happen when extreme stress happens and it induces a lack of oxygen to your brain. So remember how earlier we were discussing, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and things like that? Well, scientists actually believe that...
Scientists believe this?
Yeah. Okay. Scientists
I know what you're
believe
gonna
this.
say. Go.
Yeah. Sorry.
How progressive of them.
I know. The stress of death actually produces a remembrance of being born, and that's the tunnel. The tunnel is the birth canal, and the light at the end is you're being birthed into the world, and the light at the end of the tunnel is the world that you're going to. So it's really interesting that they're saying you're just remembering being born as you're dying.
Okay, that's interesting that you said that. Okay, so what I was going to say, I knew you were going to talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, but I have kind of a different view on that. This stuff has always interested me, obviously, like all of this kind of stuff. So when I was really young, I remember somebody telling me their theory about near-death experiences, and it really stuck with me. I was young. I was like 9 maybe.
Holy.
And
having some deep-ass conversations for a 9-year-old.
Yep. It stuck with me because I was like, wow. So if you believe in reincarnation, what if that light at the end of the tunnel is you being reborn?
Your new life.
Yeah, you're going into the new birth canal, and if you get sucked back out, it's not your time, another soul replaces yours.
Right. Yeah, I totally believe that.
So that kind of goes hand in hand with, and I'm not going to touch on this subject because it's so touchy, but the fact that when does a fetus have a soul?
Right.
Is the soul undetermined until the last moment kind of thing? Is it just a being until it's about to come out?
Yeah, that's true. When soul and body are one.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
That's all we got for you guys.
That's it. But you have a story on near-death experience.
Yes. So Now, to finish this video, I thought that I would add a personal touch and divulge to you my near-death experience or my out-of-body experience, which are basically the same thing as we've already discussed. So when I was approximately 13 years old, my parents are divorced. They've been divorced since I was 9. So we would get to my dad's place every second weekend, and my dad was living about 4 to 5 hours away from my mom's house. So there was this huge stretch of highway that we would have to travel to get between houses.
Hang on, wait. That trickling sound, it's raining outside, so like, it sounds like someone's peeing, but it's when I use straws, so just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just like
sorry.
think of it as like a soothing, relaxing
it is very
atmosphere
relaxing, but
to this story.
It sounds a little bit like a pee, but
Ambiance. Ambiance.
hilarious.
Now, we would have to take this big trek during all seasons, and living up north, we get horrific winters here, and where my dad was living is even further north, so it's even more treacherous. Now, there was this one occasion that I remember like it was yesterday. Like I say, I was 13. We were driving back from my dad's to my mom's on the really long stretch of highway. Now, these highways are very raised up, so just keep that in mind as I'm telling this story. We were driving along, everything was normal. There was a bit of a blizzard going on, but nothing we're not used
normal
to.
for north, yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, people are used to driving in these kind of conditions. But what we didn't know is underneath that layer of snow on the highway, there was black ice. Suddenly, the big truck that we were driving spun out of control on this ice. We went towards oncoming traffic and then came back onto our side of the road, still spinning, eventually falling off the side of the highway. We slammed down the side of the highway, rolling upside down, and the glass in the vehicle, every single window smashed. There were shards of glass flying through the air. Everyone was screaming. And I know, yeah, like, did you know you were signing up for an action movie? Because here we go, buckle up, bitches. No. Luckily, we all had our seatbelts on. Thank goodness, because this could have been definitely a just death experience, not a near-death experience. So I have a twin brother who has cerebral palsy. He doesn't have as much movement and things like that, so my immediate reaction was to just stretch my seatbelt as far as it could go, because I didn't want to take it off, and cover him, lay on top of him and cover him in the back seat of this truck as we spiraled down the side of this highway. And I just got this overwhelming feeling of just relaxed and at peace. And it was like I couldn't even feel the commotion of the vehicle anymore. It was like everything was still, everything was calm, and I just started to drift up. Like it felt like you know when you take magnets and put them really close together but not quite touching, and you can feel that pull? That's what it felt like. Like I was like just being pulled out of my body, and I could see me over my brother.
You could see yourself?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Over my brother, and I could see my dad and my stepmom, and I could see, so like first I started seeing like in the vehicle, and then as I drifted higher and higher, I saw the vehicle itself rolling down the highway. It was crazy, and I just kept floating up and up and up, and I just remember feeling like I was like, oh, it's my time now, this is okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I was completely making peace with it. I was like, all right, well, you know, this is totally fine. Like, I feel safe. I feel almost like, yeah, like I was being like hugged and like embraced and welcomed, and I was just floating higher, and I didn't see like a bright white light or anything, but like it was light. It was good. It wasn't dark and scary. It was just like, okay. And I was making peace with it, and I was accepting it. And then it was almost like I opened my eyes and I was back in the vehicle as we hit the final ground upside down. And I remember just like opening my eyes. It was almost like when you're like falling in a dream and you like hit the bed almost.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. I was like back into into that reality, and like opened my eyes, and we were all hanging upside down from our seatbelts in the truck. Everyone was freaking out, and I was just like totally okay, and like I was like, all right, you know what? You know, I was shaken up obviously, but I wasn't as freaked out as everybody else.
Right.
I felt like I was a lot more collected, and my brother was totally okay. Thankfully, everyone seemed to be fine. We got a little bit scratched up obviously from the glass, but there were no horrific traumas in terms of like injury and things like that. And the only thing I remember is like feeling kind of disappointed that I couldn't stay.
Actually, I didn't mention that, but that's a thing that a lot of people say, that they almost feel like they wish they wouldn't have come back because it was so beautiful.
Yeah, it was just like
Such a relaxing, loving feeling.
yes, yeah, just peace and acceptance and love. And yeah, and then before I knew it, there were like a trucker like pulled over and like came out and was cutting us out of our seatbelts, and like
Crazy.
the ambulance showed up. It was
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was my out-of-body near-death experience.
Can I tell you like how I kind of interpret that?
Yes.
Whether or not I'm right.
Please do, yes.
What if, because you decided to help your brother in like such a selfless way, that you were gifted not experiencing the horrendous side of it?
Right.
Like you chose to you know, put his life before yours.
I totally believe you. I
Yeah.
think that could be what happened, and maybe they whoever they may be, the universe was like, you know what, like you need to go back for him. You know, because like I was taking care of my brother almost as much as my mom was, like growing up, and like we're very, very close. We're twins. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. So
Yeah, you did.
okay, good. I think that you're onto something.
Yeah, interesting.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
That's cool that you have a near-death experience. I do not. Thankfully,
Wow.
that's kind of good.
But you know what? Like that's actually kind of good that you don't, or else it wouldn't seem as authentic and
Yes,
genuine, right?
but I do have like, I don't know 100% what the intensity of this was, because my mom was in a really bad kind of situation when this happened. But when I was born, I do know that I have been told before that when I was born not breathing and unresponsive. My mom said that she remembers it feeling like an eternity listening to the doctor rubbing me like to try and stimulate like my blood flow and saying, "Come on, little one, breathe, little one, breathe." And then
my gosh.
I started crying. So
Well,
interesting. I don't know.
we do have a theory that people who have had a brush with death in some way are given more abilities in terms of like seeing or experiencing the paranormal
Or
in a more
being
intense
closer,
way.
being closer to the other side kind
Yeah.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
that makes sense.
So thank you so much for watching, and remember to like this video. It helps us out a lot, and don't forget to subscribe and to hit the notification bell so that you get notified every single time that we post new videos. And don't forget
To live your life with love and light. We'll see you guys. Bye.